Hello again and welcome to the 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I want to say a huge thank you to a big number of my loyal supporters, because a couple of weeks ago, about a week ago, I put out a Facebook comment saying, hey guys, I'm looking to do a video on Hydras, and does anyone, I don't own a painted Hydra. I'm working on rectifying that, but I don't currently own a painted Hydra, and does anyone have any pictures? And loads of people got back to me posting their really cool pictures of the Hydra. So what I'm going to do is, I put them all together for this video in a big mashup, big collage. I'm just going to say thank you to each one of you for sending in pictures of your Hydra. And hopefully I won't miss anyone. If I do, I apologise, but hopefully I won't miss anyone. So thank you to Maximilian Raphael Paul. Thank you to Ollie Hirschlund. Thank you to Hunter James White. Thank you to Baz Dan. Thank you to Christian Augst. And thank you to Bo Frankie. Thank you to Andrew Stepukov. Hope I'm pronouncing that one correctly. And thank you to Lewis Higgs for sending in pictures of your Hydras. Really appreciate you guys answering the call and helping me out in a time of need. So as we've probably given the game away, we're going to be talking about Hydras today. Quick tip tactica on Hydras. So, Hydras have become pretty relevant. They've actually always been a solid unit in 8th edition, and they've had a bit of a points decrease, I believe. So now they sit at a comfortable 93 points, including the hull heavy bolter, whereas previously they had been over 100 points. So the reason why, so they're a bit cheaper, and there are so many units out there now which have the fly keyword. Now the reason that's important is because Hydras, they get, with their Hydra autocannons, they get +1 to hit against anything with the fly keyword. Doesn't need to be a flyer, it just needs to have the fly keyword. And on the flip side is anything that doesn't have the fly keyword, they get a -1 to hit against. So if you're shooting normal targets, you're only hitting on 5s. But if you're shooting aircraft, then you're still hitting on 4s. But if you're shooting anything which is a ground-based fly unit, any sort of jetpack infantry, skimmers, Custodes, captains on jet bikes, and Custodes jet bikes in general, which are still very powerful, and the new Custodes Forge World bullshit hover tank, you would be hitting those things on 3s. So Hydras, this is something that I want to do another video on, but Hydras are very anti-meta. Now, Imperial Knights obviously still a big factor, but Hydras are pretty anti-meta. Now, even though Elder Flyers have had a bit of a nerf and stuff, you're still going to see a lot of Flyers dominating the top table. Flyer spam's still a thing. Elder Flyers are still a thing. They haven't had the points increase. They've just, they no longer can move block people. And Hydras are good at taking down Elder Flyers. And they're good at taking down flyers in general. Now, you might be saying, how are Hydras good at taking down Elder Flyers? Because obviously, if you're looking at like an Elatok flyer, that thing's going to be at least -2 to hit. And this is very true. So your Hydra will still be hitting on 5s. Now, bear in mind, that's already better than most of your other vehicles out there. I mean, a regular Lehman Russ is going to hit an enemy unit, enemy Elder Flyer, on 6s at best. A Hydra will be hitting on 5s. Now, and for a decent price point, and they've got a decent fire bullet, so they are really good at killing flyers. They are really good at doing it, because most Elder Flyers, like Crimson Hunter Exarchs, for example, are toughness 6. They're not toughness 7. Which means the fact that the Hydra has 8 strength 7 AP -1 damage 2 shots means that you're wounding on 3s, which means if you get the hit, autocannons often struggle to hurt big things, simply because most of the time they're wounding them at best on 4s and often on 5s. But against like flyers, what if you actually make them hit? And bear in mind, you've got 8 shots, so you've got a good chance of hitting with about 3 of those shots against a -2 to hit flyer. Then you've got a good chance of wounding with both with at least 2 of those, and they've only got 50-50 chance. So you can put 2, you can reliably chuck 2 damage through one of these things, and that's before we even take. That's a bare bones non-regiment Hydra. Then you can start adding things in, for example, like why didn't you pop one in the Emperor's Wrath Artillery Detachment? You can make it fire twice. And that way, suddenly you're getting 16 shots from a 93-point vehicle. That's not too bad at all. Now here's my quick tip tactica for making Hydras properly anti-meta. Okay, I mean, we're talking properly. There's 2 routes to do this, right? The first one is the simplest one and is also the most reliable one, which is you take them as Vestroyans. Let's say you're playing hyper competitive Imperial Guard soup. Okay? In that hyper competitive Imperial Guard soup, you're going to mix different regiments because you're playing competitively. Now Vestroyans you're going to always have units which are going to want to be objective holders and want to be able to deal out the long-range firepower. Well, Vestroyans, if we're assuming you're always going to be taking 3 battalions and mixing 3 different regiments, one of those regiments, you're obviously going to want to take Cadans on one of them. More than likely, you're going to want to take Kachans on another. What do you want to take on your 3rd regiment in your soup? Well, more than likely, you should be taking or considering Vestroyans, because Vestroyans are quite anti-meta. They've got the long-range guns, but what they have is the stratagem Vestroyan Pride, Firstborn Pride, which quite simply, you plop that down on a unit, it's 1 CP, and you get +1 to hit. So suddenly, your Hydra is going to be hitting against a -2 to hit Eldar Flyer, so we're hitting on 4s, which is good. And then take into account that you can make that Hydra, if you've got a bit of redundancy. Let's say you've taken 2 or 3 Hydras, which again is less than 300 points. And if you're budgeting yourself for approximately 600 points per battalion, and you have 200 points left over for bits and bobs, then that's well within your remit of 3 Hydras and 3 squads of infantry and a couple of company commanders. Well within your remit. Well within budget, I should say. So suddenly you've got a Hydra which is able to hit on 4s against -2 to Elder Flyers, and it's able to shoot twice. So it's 16 shots for 1 Hydra, hitting 8 times. Once you've got the hits through, that's the hard part over. Then you're winning on 3s. More than likely, you could get yourself 6 wounds on one of those things, on one of those Elder Flyers, and then they're going to fail 3 of the saves. Which means straight away, bam, you've put on 6 wounds. 6 wounds on, let's not mistake this, one of the hardest units to put damage onto. A -2 to hit flyer. Those things are as tough as knights statistically. It's crazy. Because they're so hard to hit. And even if your elder opponent decides he wants to lightning fast reflexes, you're still hitting on 5s. Which is amazing. There's very few units out there which can claim the same thing. Very few units for the price. That's what you've got to remember. Now, the second way you can play this game is by playing Cadian, and because Cadians improve all things firepower related. Because then, if your Hydra stays still, they will naturally reroll 1s to hit, and then also you can use overlapping fields of 5. You manage to get a wound on one of those flyers to get +1 to hit against it. Now, my recommendation actually would be, if you're thinking of adding 2, 3 Hydras to your list, I think 3 would be slightly too much. Would look cool as fuck and would give you some redundancy. But 3 might be slightly too much. I would consider 2. And and you'd have one in a Cadian detachment and one in a Destroying detachment. And then you're able to go, right, this Destroying Hydra is going to get +1 to hit, and then I'm going to, with my Cadian units, wound another enemy unit, and then play overlapping fields of fire, and then my other Hydra is going to get +1 to hit, and then you've got two. And then the best thing about the Cadian ones is they also get reroll ones to hit as well. Now, that is obviously a good feather in your cap to have against flyers. Now, one slight problem, or what someone you might think is a slight problem, is because Hydras are such an obvious AA target that they are going to, if the enemy goes first, probably draw their firepower. Yes, this is true. But consider the following. If the opponent is wasting planes to kill your Hydras, and they are still armoured vehicles, guys, assuming you put things like prepared defences on them, blah, 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 they're still going to probably take a couple of planes to remove each Hydra. You know, maybe a plane and a half to remove each Hydra. At least 3 planes to remove 2 Hydras. Okay, which is half the plane force of the enemy. Half the aircraft. That firepower then isn't going against, inevitably, what you've also got in your hyper-competitive list, which is going to be 3 tank commanders and probably Pask. So if the enemy is going, I must kill the Hydras because they're an obvious AA target, then they're not targeting your other units, which can almost function like Hydras. Because think about it, a tank commander hits on 3s, and he can get +1 to hit either through overlapping fields of fire or through Firstborn Pride. So even against a -3 to Eldar flyer, he can still hit on 5, very much like a Hydra. So that's how you put your enemy between a rock and a hard place, and it counters one of the big problems that Guard often have, which is it's easy for the enemy to carve our list up with good target priority. By doing this, you're actually making it difficult for your opponent. Do they shoot the dedicated anti-air units, or which are always going to be able to plink some wounds off them, or do they hit the tank commanders? Now, one other thing to say is, and we're talking very anti-meta now at the moment, and it's always got to have the caveat of the meta is obviously there is local metas and there is top tier metas, and we're talking about tournament top tier metas. Obviously, Elder Flyers have seen a bit of a nerf, and so we will see less of them. But what we have already seen begin to take its place is Dark Elder Venom spam. We've seen that on many top tables. Dark Elder Venom spam. Which Venoms have an inbuilt -1 to hit, much like a flyer, but the Hydras get to counter that because they get +1 to hit. So Hydras hit Venoms on 4s. And let me tell you, Hydras eat Venoms for breakfast. A couple of Hydras will bring down a Venom a turn every turn without fail, without any buffs on them. Looking at 16 shots, looking at 8 hits, you're looking at 6 wounds. The enemy's only got a 5-up save, so if we're going to fail 4 of them, that's 8 damage. Venoms only have 6 wounds. Boom. Every turn, you can side down a Venom with 2 Hydras. And you can just sit back and screen them out and try and stop them from getting. And if they end up going after your Hydras, then they're not going after your tank commanders again, which is very, very tasty. Also, because you've got to consider Drukhari, Dark Elder, they're in the top tables every time. If you're getting into the top tables, you're going to face them at some point. You're going to face Raven Wing Bombers, you're going to face Venom Spam. More than likely, you're going to face some knob end who's turned up with all the Talos. And guess what Hydras are also quite good at dealing with? That's damn right, Talos. Because they force the Talos onto the 4-up save, and every wound that you get through, you get 2 damage on them, which is what really hacks off Taloses. You're wounding them, I believe they're for 6, so you're wounding them on 3s. I think they can get homunculuses, which can get them up to top of 7, but still wounding on 4s. But because they're Talos are a unit with the fly keyword, but no AP, but no -1 to hit, you know, you're hitting them on 3s, wounding them on 3s, and they've only got a 4-up save. And you can make that, if you're Firstborn Pride, hitting them on 2s, and if you're Cadian, hitting them on 2s. And you can get your Hydras to fire twice with stratagem, which is you're looking at, you've got 2 Hydras, 1 Cadian, 1 Destroyer in your Imperial Guard soup. You're looking at 24 shots, hitting on 2s. You can get them to reroll 1s quite easily. You probably, again, most competitive list should have Yarrick in there. To deny the enemy Warlord and to provide reroll 1s to hit to a separate fire base. So suddenly you've got 24 Hydra shots hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. They're pretty much all going to hit. That's 24 hits. Should be wounding on 3s. That's going to be 16 wounds. The enemy is going to fail 4 of those saves. That's 8 failed saves. That's 16 damage the enemy is going to have to try and take. Then they get a 6 up feel no pain against Taloses. So they're going to stop 3 of those if they're lucky. Which means you do 15... I'll make sure I got 13 damage. Yeah, because 8 wounds get through. That's 16 damage. So it's 13 wounds, which is a couple of dead Talos. A couple of dead Talos from 2 93-point units with a few stratagems spent on them. 2 for overlapping fields of fire, 1 for Firstborn Pride. I believe it's 1, might be 2 for the shoot twice stratagem. So you're looking at 3. You're looking at 3 to 5 command points to spend on them to get them to do that each turn. But that's 2 Talos killed a turn. There's few things out there which can claim to be able to do that. Few things. And we're all talking anti-meta here. Custodes bikes. I mentioned it before. The Custodes hover tanks. They are coming up and up in the meta. And you'll never guess what's decent at taking them down. That's right. Hydras are good at taking them down because you're hitting on 3s, potentially hitting on 2s. Slamming those wounds on every wound that you get past, that's 2 damage. And it's AP minus 1. So you more often than not, each one of those Hydras is going to be sneak. I think 2 Hydras between them can sneak through roughly 3 wounds on a Custodes hover tank. That's 6 wounds straight on through. That's good. That's very good. So, I'm not saying, I want to caveat this, I'm not saying that Hydras are top tier tournament competitive. What I am saying is Hydras have the potential to be very anti-meta. But the one thing you've got to be aware of, guys, is because obviously I am aware that some people might get might go out and want to buy 100 Hydras. Well, I'd always say, 1, it's good to have a couple of every guard model. So consider getting yourself a couple of Hydras at some point. They're fantastic models. I just built my first one recently. Love it. Going to build my second one as soon as I can. But chasing the meta, obviously, sometimes things will become relevant, sometimes they will fall out of relevancy. But I think Hydras have been pretty solid for most of 8th edition now. Nearly every single army has something with the fly keyword. Orcs, Storm Boys, Space Marines, Smash Captains and stuff like that. Any bloody skimmer, Tau, Eldar, Dark Eldar, Custodes. Hell, even the up-and-coming Primaris Repulsor list, where you take 3 to 5 repulsors, +1 to hit against all those repulsors. And they've only got, you might be winning on 5s, but they've only got a 3-up save. So every wound that you sneak through, that's 2 damage. Hydras are very anti-meta, which is why I think you won't really see them in casual games, but it's interesting. I think they could function very well in competitive games. They're anti-meta. Anyway, said that word so many times now, I feel like it sounds wrong. So, what do you guys think? Am I on something here? Are they a hidden gem? Are they very anti-meta? Or are they just not worth it? Personally, in my Armoured Company list, which I talked about in one of my videos, I'm considering dropping. I said you need 7 Leon Russes to make that list work. So if I drop a couple of Conquerors, that gives me 300 points plus to spend. I could get 3 Hydras. And I think that could be quite nasty. Or I could get 2 Hydras and 3 squads of Mortars for anti-magic box, you see? What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.